Hey guys. So, something I see a lot in the financial world when people are assessing or trying to figure out how they should go about paying off debt. Now, of course, we know debt, aka liabilities, right, is something that we want to definitely tackle because it means we owe someone something. And depending upon the details around it, such as the interest rate that you're paying, how long you're paying this debt for, those are factors that you also want to think about when you're talking about paying off debt. Now, here's the thing. I see people do this a lot, and I'm going to say this, it's not your fault. I feel like there's a certain person whose name starts with a D and last name starts with an R that has pushed this whole debt-free agenda just a little too hard. Now, I know some of you are cringing and you're thinking, what do you mean, Kristen? You want us to be in debt? No, I don't want you to be in debt, but I do want you to be able to tackle debt in a way where you're not hindering yourself in savings or investing, retirement, and other things that your money should be doing. And I'm also going to kind of show you a breakdown of what I mean by that, because guess what? Numbers don't lie. People do, but not numbers. So if I can show you on, a kind of a comparison between numbers and how all this is broken down and how you should be paying off debt the proper way, not immediately, fast, quick, in a hurry, but there is a method to this, then hopefully it'll help you guys so that you're not always finding yourself in the same situation as once before where you were paying the debt off, but now here you go back again and you're getting into debt again because of a lot of different key factors that I'm going to explain. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I have person A and I have person B. Now, let's say that person A is in the same amount of debt as person B. Let's say that the debt is $30,000. That's credit cards, loans, anything that falls into that category, okay, as a liability. Now, like I said, they both have the same amount of debt. And starting out, they kind of both have the same type of money left over. So let's say that typically after bills are paid, person A has $1,000 left over. That's after minimums on, debt, credit cards, things like that. And again, let's say person B has the same amount of money left over every month after bills. Okay, cool. Now, let's say that both person A and person B don't have much of a savings or an emergency fund built up. So both have $500. Okay. And then as far as retirement and investing between the two, let's say that they're really just trying to see what's left over every month before they assess how much they're going to put into this category. Okay. So here's a picture that we have. We have an emergency fund or a savings of $500. This person has $1,000 left over each month. And both people have $30,000 in debt. Now, here is what I think is the biggest mistake that most people make. And again, like I said, it's not your fault. DR, that guy, he's kind of really pushed this whole debt-free agenda so hard that we've kind of forgotten some other things that are very important. Now, first, I want to stop at the fact that your savings, right? So that is typically a person's emergency fund. And what is that for? Well, it's for a rainy day. Something happens, you need to reach into your savings to pay for that. Okay, a flat tire or, a leak in the roof and insurance doesn't cover all of it. Something where you're like, man, I really need to take care of this. Okay, so also on top of that, we have, like I said, $1,000 left every month after they pay their bills and their minimums on their debt. And this is what the DR movement was basically preaching or wants you to do. They want you to take pretty much essentially this whole entire $1,000 a month and plop it on your debt. Now, let's say that you add that extra $1,000 a month and put it on your debt. Your minimum, you have that part of your debt that you're paying, but with the extra $1,000 a month, you can now get your debt down to zero in, let's say, 24 months. Well, actually, it'll probably be less than that, but let's say 20 months. Okay. So you're really attacking this debt. You're putting everything you've got into there. Okay. Person B is like, well, I have $1,000 left over a month and I do want to pay my debt off, but I'm going to probably not put all $1,000 a month. I'll just do $400 extra. Okay. So person B is going to just do an extra $400 a month. And let's say because he's not as aggressive as person A on getting rid of this debt, he pays the debt off in 30 months. Okay. So while you're looking at this screen, you're thinking, well, Kristen, I mean, duh, this person's going to pay this debt off a lot quicker. That means that they're not being charged interest. And I think that's another thing that really gets people. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm being charged interest and I'm being charged a price to actually hold this debt. Now, let's say that in total amount of interest that person A will have to pay because they're accelerating paying this debt off. Let's say it's, $2,500 total in interest. Okay. And let's say because this person's taking a little bit longer, total interest that they pay is $4,000. Now, again, you're looking at this and you're like, okay, Kristen, I'm trying to follow you on why I would not want to be person A and pay my debt off a lot quicker. I'm saving $1,500 in interest by doing that. And I have paid it off quicker than person B. So now that's 10 months of now I can divert this $1,000 a month to other things. Here's where this gets tricky, guys. Okay. So person A, they've got it all figured out. But let's just say in month 12, something happens. Okay. So person A wasn't too worried about their savings account. They were so worried about paying off their debt that something happened and they needed, say, $3,000. Well, they don't have it here, okay? And they're not putting any of this here. So they're going to have to add on to the debt that they're currently paying off aggressively because they don't have the money to take care of that emergency. Okay, so I said the emergency was $3,000. And let's say they wipe out their $500 in their savings. And then they need to add another $2,500 in debt, whether it be another card or another loan. Okay. So they didn't have that emergency fund to draw from. And so now essentially what happens is because they don't have that to draw from, they are adding to the debt that they already have. And the problem is they're never going to get to a point where they can build this up or even start this because they are so just really aggressively paying this off that everything else is not being addressed. Now, here's my biggest thing as well. And a lot of people don't realize this until you say it and they go, oh, wow, yeah, she's right. But when it comes to, building wealth, right? And people like to use different tools to build wealth. Your job gives you retirement savings plans where you can invest, put your money in the market, things like that. You have stocks, you have other, lower paying options for interest, but they might be safer. You have money markets, things like that. You have indexing, you have all kind of ways where you can grow and, build your wealth up so that you can, build up retirement savings and whatever other investing that you want to do. Well, person A is not feeding that at all. And the one thing that this thrives off of is compound interest. Now, why is compound interest so important? Because it's basically essentially going to work for you. Your money's going to work for you. And what is compound interest? Favorite person? I'll name it a person. But what does compound interest love? Compound interest absolutely adores time. Okay? So compound interest and time are a thing. They're an item. And the more time you give compound interest, time to actually compound, the more money you're going to have. Now, if you cut that out and you're not feeding this, then what are you doing? You're actually wasting time. You're not capturing or taking advantage of time that you essentially would be able to take advantage of and grow more money because you had more time to grow it, because that is what compound interest thrives off of. If you're familiar with how to even calculate that, that would be the number 72 divided by the interest rate that you're actually earning, and that would equal how many years it takes for that particular money to grow, okay? So if you're getting 1% in an account, it's going to take you 72 years to double that money. If you're getting 10% in an account as far as a return, that'll take 7.2 years for your money to double. So of course, the higher the interest rate that you're earning, the more times you're going to be compounding your money, which means more money for you, right? So again, compound interest loves time, but if you're not feeding this, then you are losing out on time, okay? So again, in this scenario, you're not feeding your savings. Something came up and you have to go further in debt. And then you're not feeding your retirement or investing or anything else you're doing. So you're losing out on compound interest and what it can do over time. Now, let's go over to person B. Okay. Now, person B did it a little different. They said, yes, I'm going to pay a little bit more in interest because I'm taking a longer time to pay my debt off. But what I want to do is I'm going to take $400 of that $1,000 a month, put it towards my debt to get that knocked out in 30 months. And then I'm going to take $300 a month, and I'm going to put it into my savings so I can grow it simultaneously, okay, while I am trying to do this whole, paying off this debt and doing everything else. So that is exactly what they're going to do. And then they're going to take the other 300 and they're going to put it here for retirement and investing. Okay. So now, same thing happens. Let's say that person B runs into a scenario where they're like, oh my gosh, man, when it rains, it pours. Something happened. And, now I have to add, or I got to pay something off. So same $3,000, incident that comes up. But guess what? They've been building their savings this whole time simultaneously while paying off debt and while building up money for retirement and investing. And so let's say, what did I say this happened in month 12? I can't remember. But let's say by then they've added another $3,600 to their savings. So in total, that would be $4,100. Okay, so 3,600 plus, math checking. So $4,100 is their new balance of their savings because they've been saving, right? And they've been investing as well. So they're doing all three together. So now when this $3,000 emergency comes up, they can actually handle that. They don't have to go further into debt. They're going to handle it from their savings and their emergency fund. On top of that, they've been over here growing and investing money and taking advantage of compound interest over time. So I have ran scenarios where I've shown someone, you think that if you, wait 20 months or 24 months to start actually taking advantage of compound interest, that it's not that big of a deal. And I've even seen to the tune of people losing out on tens of thousands of dollars just because they did not take advantage of that 20 months of compound interest and allowing their money to grow. Okay. So this person is ahead of the ball game because let's say after 20 months, right? 3 times 2, 6. So $6,000. Okay. They're ahead of the ball game because they have $6,000 in their investment, right? And it's compounding. So I'm just talking about, this is just the basis, right? The money that they put in there, but it's also compounding and being invested. So then let's say that over the 20 months that this person was not investing, this $6,000 that they put in over 20 months grew to $8,000. Because they're taking advantage of compound interest and time. So now this person has $8,000 in their retirement/investment bucket. They have $4,100 in their savings. And then, of course, they had to take out $3,000 to take care of something. And they're still on track for paying off debt, although they're taking 10 months longer than this person. But by the time this person is all done, they're $8,000 ahead of them. So you're like, well, Kristen, remember, they're paying more in interest. This is correct. But I just showed you how this person has $8,000 because they diverted money from what they had left over to this part. And they also had savings, so they did not have to go back into debt. This person added $2,500 onto their debt. They have no retirement or investing, and they have no savings. So even though they paid their debt off faster and saved $1,500, they lost out on $8,000, and they lost out on an extra $3,600 over here. So if you want to add that up, $3,600 and $8,000, that's what? $11,600. So then now that's a total of $11,600 that this scenario has warranted this person. And don't forget, I got this number after stopping at 12 months because I was trying to give you the same scenario where at month 12, they ran into this debt but didn't have the savings to take care of it. So essentially, we can even add another 8 months times 300, which is another, $2,400 onto this $4,100. They're not really messed up that they paid an extra $1,500 in interest because they have an extra $11,600 to show for it, plus $2,400. Versus this person, yeah, they paid it off quicker. And maybe in 10 months, they can be very, very aggressive, pay off the debt that they added onto because they didn't have savings, build their savings up, and hopefully catch up in the retirement and investment bucket. But more than likely, they won't, not in 10 months, catch up to this person who has $8,000 here, $3,600 plus $500, which is $4,100, and then paid off debt here, and then still on track to pay off their debt and just 10 months later. So now you see why someone who only focuses on paying off debt versus someone who knows that if you have a savings account that needs to be funded to make sure you can take care of emergencies, that you want to take advantage of compound interest over time, because if you don't, you are losing out on compound interest's best friend, which is time. Okay. Time is money, by the way. And so again, you are winning on this side because you are addressing all three, which all three are equally important. And one, like I said, if you're only feeding this one, something always is going to come up. So if you don't have something to back you up to keep you from adding to debt, well, then you're going to be in a constant cycle of always being in debt because you were taught to only tackle your debt and nothing else. So hopefully that helps you understand a lot when it comes to paying off debt, but also making sure that you're taking care of your savings in your emergency fund and also building your wealth, building your retirement, investing in things like that. And I'll leave you with this last thing, this analogy. It really helped me when I first started learning about all this stuff. And then, of course, I, got into this industry and actually became a consultant, someone helping other people. But I remember someone explaining to me, they said, if you're in a rowboat and you have one big oar, that sucker's huge, and that's all you have, and you stick it in the water and you take that oar and you just go at it. He said, what direction are you going to go in? And I said, if I think about it, in a circle. Right, you're going to go in a circle because you only have that one oar powering on that one side. It might be huge, right? It might be really big, but that one oar is the only thing working for you, and you're going in circles. Now, let's say you're trying to get about a mile in front of you, right? That was the goal for you to row a mile out, but you got one oar and you're going at it and you're going in circles. Versus having maybe one medium-sized oar and another oar, maybe it's not as big, but you have two and you're sticking them in the water and you're going. So what are you going to do? You're going to go forward because you have two oars. So the same is the same scenario where if you're only paying off debt and you just have that one oar and you're going at it and it's huge because you're really throwing money at that debt, okay, but you're going to go in circles versus the person in the other boat who has two oars And again, it might not be as big as yours, one medium size, one small one, but because they have two oars, they're actually going to go forward. And by the time you're done with that big oar and you're like, okay, and it's time to add another oar now, that person is going to be all the way ahead of you, and you've got a lot of ground to make up because you were going in circles because you were only focused with one oar. So hopefully that helps. If you guys have any questions, you know where to find me. Let's continue to learn on how to manage our finances better and pay our debt off the right way.